So, an impeachment is always going to be a huge story, right? But the real drama right now, believe it or not, is happening before anything has even officially kicked off. The whole thing centers on this one big question: who can, and maybe more importantly, who should be on Vice President Sara Duterte's defense team? And trust me, this is way more than just a legal squabble. It's a debate that really gets to the heart of how our political and legal worlds collide. And that really gets us to the core of it, doesn't it? It's a fascinating situation. If you're a top official and you're facing charges from the government, can you turn around and hire lawyers who, just a little while ago, were working inside that very same government? It's a question that puts two really fundamental ideas against each other. And as you'll see, there's no easy answer. Okay, so first up, let's break down the argument coming from some lawmakers. They're waving a pretty big red flag, and it's all about one key legal phrase: conflict of interest. Now look, this isn't just some vague worry. It gets super specific. Take Michael Ponza, for example, one of the lawyers we're talking about. He wasn't just any lawyer. He was the spokesperson for the Department of Education, while the vice president was its secretary. So the critics are asking the tough questions. Did he see internal documents? Was he part of discussions about the confidential funds that are at the very center of this whole potential impeachment? That's the heart of the problem they're pointing to. So, you see, the fear isn't just about what these lawyers might know. It's about what they might do with that knowledge, or maybe who they still know. Could they use their old networks to influence people who might be called to testify? Do they just have an unfair advantage that a totally outside lawyer wouldn't have? It's a real ethical minefield. And this all ties into a really important legal idea: the appearance of impropriety. See, in huge public cases like this, it's not always just about whether something is technically against the law. It's about trust. If the whole process just looks unfair to the public, it can damage people's faith in the entire system, no matter what the final verdict is. But hold on, that's only half the story. The argument on the other side is a powerful one, and it's based on a right that's baked right into our Constitution. So what we've got here are two massive ideas clashing head on. On one side, you have the absolute need for a process that feels fair and isn't tainted by insider info. But on the other, you have the fundamental right of anyone, accused of something, to pick their own lawyer. The vice president's supporters are basically saying, hey, working for the government before doesn't automatically mean there's a conflict now, and trying to block her choice would be a violation of her rights. Okay, so this is where it gets really practical. We've heard both sides. They both sound pretty compelling, right? But at the end of the day, who actually gets to make the call? Who has the power to settle this? Is it the lawmakers raising the issue, or is it somebody else entirely? To figure that out, we've got to get into the nitty-gritty of how impeachment actually works, because the answer is buried in the very specific jobs that different parts of the government have. You know, the simplest way to think about it is like this. The House of Representatives, they're basically the prosecutor. Their job is to look into the evidence, and if they think there's a case, file the official charges. But the Senate? The Senate is the courtroom. They're the ones who actually hold the trial and decide guilty or not guilty. And right, just like in any courtroom you can imagine, it's the court itself, the judge basically, that gets to decide all the rules of the trial. Things like who can be a lawyer on the case, what evidence gets in, the whole shebang. In an impeachment, that power belongs to the Senate, because they're the ones acting as the court, not the House. And besides that, just think about it for a second. Who's usually in charge of making sure lawyers play by the ethical rules? It's not Congress. It's the whole judicial system. The courts, the integrated bar, and at the very top, the Supreme Court. The House is a political place. It's not their job to police lawyers' ethics. Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? If pretty much all the legal experts agree the House doesn't actually have the final say here, then why are some of its members making such a huge deal about it? What's the strategy? What's really going on? Aha! And this is where things get really interesting, because this is where the legal argument starts to look a whole lot like a political one. That line between law and politics, it's about to get very, very blurry. So, what's the real play here? What's the end game? Well, a few things could be happening. By talking about this stuff so publicly, lawmakers can start to shape how people see the case before trial even starts. They can build up public pressure, maybe even hoping that the lawyers just decide to step down themselves to get away from the controversy. It's all about setting the stage and framing the conversation. And that right there is probably the most important thing to remember. what we're watching unfold isn't just a dry legal argument about ethics. It's also a very smart, very calculated political move that's designed to sway public opinion before a single piece of evidence is presented in a trial. So let's cut through all the noise. What's the bottom line here, legally speaking? Well, while all this debate in the House is definitely important politically, the actual final authority to decide who can be on that defense team, it almost certainly rests somewhere else, either with the Senate when it acts as the impeachment court, or maybe even with the Supreme Court. And all of this leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. In a process like this that's both a legal trial and a huge political battle, what's more important in defining justice? Is it the strict formal rules of a courtroom, or is it the powerful, swirling verdict of the court of public opinion? That's the real tension to keep an eye on as this whole story unfolds.